South African and African creative realm has really come to its own over the past few decades, so much so that the whole world is looking to Africa for inspiration, answers and guidance. For this week's episode, we're coming to you from the creative hub of Melville's 27 boxes to explore the creative world of art, music and design. We speak to the visionaries and the thought leaders that are at the forefront of African creativity. I'm your host, Ayanda Tabete, and this is Africa Modern. Coming up on Africa Modern this week, we are exploring art with renowned artist Kim Lieberman.
The basic is that we are all connected, and I use the carrier medium of lace.
And then we take a look at South African music and sound with local musician Amanda Black.
I do want to become, the Xhosa musician I do, but I want to do it my way.
And to finish off, we are catching up with creatives by chatting to African designer Harmonie Mbunga.
The world is not a monopoly. There is space for you.
So, is it art for art's sake, or does art have to serve purposes taken from politics, economics, religion, and so on? Well, I'll leave that for you to decide. But for local renowned artist Kim Lieberman, it is the concept above the medium that is most important. But don't take my word for it. Let's check it out.
I don't really think I got involved with art at any actual point. It was always there, naturally. My mother always says when I was little, I was always kneeling at a table making something. It was my space, it was something I understood. After school, I traveled for a bit and I decided, let me study graphic design, thinking that I could then be a graphic designer, not really being mature enough to know what that meant. Never ever actually landed up naturally working as a graphic designer. It wasn't my zone. I remember one day, which was a very pivotal moment, was I was at the Uffizi gallery in Florence, and I was standing in front of this Bellini painting, and it was for some reason they had like these little wooden walkways, so like people sort of would shuffle past because there were always so many people, and I just started crying and crying, and I said to my friend who I was traveling with, I said, I'm going to go back to South Africa and I'm going to be an artist. So when I was studying at Wits Tech, the lecturers, Mark Edwards, who was a very big mentor to me, Alan Olbra, Willem Boshoff, so the whole environment was quite conceptual. The whole striving was, how do we break out of any of the traditional after, you still had your traditional printmaking, painting, sculpture, but after that, all the lecturers' interests were, how do we move into something conceptual? My mediums, the various mediums that I've used over the years, have all been about how does this medium carry the concept that I'm interested in. And one day, been on holiday in Cape Town and we were driving into Johannesburg on the highway, and my husband saw that there were new lights, highway lights. He said to me, you should go find those beautiful old ones. They're probably in a scrap metal yard. And maybe you could make something with them. And I said to him, not until I have done something with those little bronze figures that I've had for 10 years. And with that pop, I knew I wanted to join them with thread. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I went into a haberdashery, probably that week. I said to them, this is what I wanted to do. I drew it out for them. There's lots of little triangles, very messy. And they said, you'd have to make lace. I knew there was a Laces Guild, so I phoned the Laces Guild. And through them, I found my teacher, Janice Savage. And she was willing to, do something new. What she explained to me is until 1970, lace was basically, from the Industrial Revolution, a lost craft. It's an antique craft, because the machines came in and was making handmade lace. But then in the hippie era, people started to look at all the handmade crafts, and so it had come back back in, and the lace makers were learning the craft of lace anew. But I wanted to do contemporary lace. So I landed up designing the pricking, which is where you put your pins in for lace. So I designed the circular pricking that was very intense in the middle and that spread out. Energy force or path coming out, like saying how we communicate that invisible connection and influence we have in the world. So landscape of the court, the basic is that we are all connected. And I use the carrier medium of lace to show that. But I also take different figures that were relevant to the court in some way at a different time or different levels of relevance. And I've cut them out on a very, very thin metal so that the figures are accurately the human beings who they represent. So if you know the person, it's very easy to spot who they are. So each of the figures have holes in so that they can be weaved into the work. You've got a frame which has got holes every few centimeters, and then basically the lace gets threaded and the people get threaded. The people such as Yvonne Mahoro, Albie Sachs, Edwin Cameron, Arthur Chaskelson, but there are also other people who are more like we the people. One is a woman called Mpumi Shabalala, and another one is a friend of mine, Anthony Stein. They've both been connected to the court. That's why I picked people that sort of were keys, that weren't very known or famous or weren't people who wrote our constitution, so that it becomes really about the landscape of the court. Who were the people? And that there were so many people who aren't known, who were impactful, and their energies went into supporting the people who were impactful, and how it also goes out and influences all the people in this country. The other thing that sort of zones into the focus of the court and making it a landscape, like a traditional landscape, playing with that idea of how artists have always done landscapes, is I went and I photographed the trees at the court. And so the trees that are in the work are actual court trees. But then I also photographed birds that were flying over the court at that time on that day, and the clouds that were above the court but above Johannesburg. But it was a little bit, like in a way tongue-in-cheek, but in a way very serious. I'm doing a landscape of the Constitutional Court. So it should be easy for anyone to read. But if you are interested in pushing, well, who are these figures? You can find the history of South Africa. The path to making the work is quite complex, a lot of research, and the most wonderful part is meeting some of these brilliant, ethical human beings, because that's one of the things that I'm incredibly interested in, is sort of wild morals, wild values, wild ethics, wild leadership. One of the lace grounds that I worked with is actually called chaotic ground or wild ground. And that's the one that I've most favored. It looked like that little drawing that I first envisioned when I started making lace. And these people are icons of that.
Don't go anywhere, because when we return, we'll be taking a look at local South African music and sounds. Welcome back to Africa Modern. Up next, we explore the exciting world of South African music with local South African musician Amanda Black, who is making waves internationally for her African sound and style. Well, she is a proud Xhosa woman who incorporates her culture into her fashion sense and songs. She considers herself an African rock star. Let's check her out.
I definitely believe I'm an African creative. My art is, I'm an African, by an African, for Africans. The stories that I tell are African stories. Amanda Black is a South African artist, originally from the Eastern Cape. Very bubbly, crazy singer-songwriter. And yeah, that's what I do. My music is a fusion of sounds. I like to call it Afrofusion. And I said, okay, it's okay. Like it's a subgenre under Afropop. I really wanted a fusion of who I am as a person. I'm young, I'm funky. I like to call myself a rock star, and I am very, very close. And I embrace those grounds, that who I am. So what I wanted to do was bring those worlds, my R&B background, because I grew up listening to R&B as well. I mean, I grew up with Whitney, and that's how I literally really learned how to sing, if I can say that. So I decided, look, I do want to become, the Xhosa musician, I do, but I want to do it my way. I want to represent my culture my way, and that's what I did. And that's where the fusion comes from. What inspires my fashion sense is whatever I feel like wearing. And it's also a representative of what I did with the music. I love leather. As you can see, I love leather, and then I accessorize. I'll mix in my Xhosa accessories. Obviously, the dots are standard already. I'm like, Xhosa, I am here, I have arrived. But with the styling, I really feel like I wear what I like, and I wear what represents my inner child. My creative process is very weird. It takes any shape, dependent on how I feel, dependent on where I am in my life, Like sometimes I'll write the verse first because I know exactly what I want to say in the song. Sometimes I'll write a chorus because I only know a little bit of how I feel at that moment. Whenever I write, it's about how I feel and what I'm. So was my revival. Power was me speaking life into myself. And when I wrote the title track, I felt like I had none. I felt like I was powerless. So I was there and I was like, power inside my veins, power inside my heart, power. And that's how the album was created, with the sole purpose of rising up. Africa, and this term of Africa is now. Africa's been the lead. Africa has been the trendsetters. We do our own thing, and it is because we're so proud and we embrace our cultures that the rest of the world is like, they're so bold and so loudly African, so proudly African. So Vuka, one of the tracks on the album featuring Anthony Hamilton and the Soweto Gospel Choir, is one of the special songs. Man, all my songs are special. All the songs on the album are pretty special. But it's so incredible. I mean, I've been listening to Anthony Hamilton, come on now, Charlene, and to be so blessed and so honored to have him on the song, it for me was like, whoa, dreams do come true. I had written the song already, and then I thought he was gonna mute and then write his own. He sent it back, and we're listening. Whoa, what? I was so overwhelmed and so humbled that I didn't teach him how to pronounce the Xhosa words on the song. He didn't ask, you know what I'm saying? He put in his own effort. That was really, really, really awesome. What I think is new is that more and more Africans are starting to embrace that which the rest of the world has been appreciating from afar. Now, more and more of Africa is like, hey, we are dope. We are the ones. So that's what I'm enjoying watching right now, which with the transformation of Afrofuturism and just us being us and being unapologetically so.
It's time for a break, but don't go anywhere, because when we return, we're catching up with African designer Harmonie Mbunga. You don't want to miss it. For this week's episode, we're coming to you from the creative hub of Marvel's 27 boxes to explore the creative world of art, music, and design. Rising from the ashes of Van Smith Park, the regenerated public park heralds 27 boxes reinvention as a family destination for the Marvel community. Designed for sustainability and a water-scarce Johannesburg, it has more cement than grass, but measures to soften the starkness are very visible. Among the innovations are well-defined corresponding entrances on 3rd and 4th Avenues, a plant nursery and a new children's playground on 4th Avenue, incorporating the amphitheatre. Inspired by similar developments like Box Park in London's Shoreditch, 27 Boxes is a shipping container shopping development that has transformed a disused park into 80 boutique stores, restaurants, and kiosk spaces geared towards starter entrepreneurs, from fashion designers to chefs, jewelers, artists, interior designers, baristas, and bakers. The emphasis of many of the stores is on local design and local production, and you'll often find that the friendly face behind the counter is also the person who handmade the unique items that you're buying. A quirky alternative to Joburg's mega mall scene. Come and explore local design at its best. Each week, we feature a segment titled Catching Up with Creatives. This is a platform to showcase established as well as up-and-coming creative talent. We receive content that has been filmed remotely by them in their own studios and spaces. We ask them a couple of questions just to get a glimpse into their lives. For this week's feature of Catching Up with Creatives, we caught up with African designer Harmonie Mbunga. For Harmonie, it's important to pay homage to traditional African craftsmanship and textiles that celebrate Africa. Let's check her out.
Hello everyone, my name is Harmonie and I am the founder of Valoi Africa. Fashion and creativity and just making things with my hands are things I've always had a natural affinity towards since I was very young. Africa, Africa, Africa. I love and I am strongly passionate about this continent I was born in. Creating this brand was also, in a way, one way to connect and get to know more, or at least start scratching the surface of the plethora of different cultures found on this great continent. You know, there is so much history, so much richness and heritage, and so much craftsmanship the world needs to know about and appreciate. Bold and striking, yet minimalist and refined. The vision is to celebrate traditional inspired artisan-led craftsmanship through refined contemporary design. Reminding ourselves as Africans and showing the world and anybody who might have any doubts that African design and craftsmanship is and has always been luxury. As designers and creators, it means cementing our work and then seeing it live on and be raised to the same esteem as other legacy brands within our modern era. Best advice I've been given is to just start where you are and with what you have, because you never know what impact your contribution could have for the whole. The world is not a monopoly. There is space for you. It takes time, it takes effort, to keep showing up, but keep doing it consistently. Keeping resilient and keep creating and bringing to life new perspectives that cannot being ignored. First up, sandals, unisex sandals. New amazing sandals that will have an amazing sustainable edge to it. That's it. Thank you so much for having me. Cheers.
It's been fun taking you through this week's installment of Africa Modern. Join us next week as we continue to explore the creatives that call Africa home. Let's continue the conversation on social media using the hashtag Africa Modern. Until then, I'm your host, Ayanda Tabete, and this is Africa Modern.